Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Racha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Isaiah, the 47th chapter. And Isaiah 47 is really a prophecy concerning judgment or the destruction that the Lord was going to bring upon the daughter of Babylon, as is worded in this verse, which we know and identify today as America, okay, otherwise known as Babylon the Great. So this is Isaiah chapter 47, verse 1. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Okay, and so this, like I mentioned, the daughter of Babylon here, being America. Okay, the reason it's referred to as a virgin, right? Because similar to how an actual woman who was referenced or known as a virgin has not been entered into, right, by a man. This place, America, has not been invaded on the level of, war, okay, or had, that major sort of destruction within its borders, all right, or within its land, as opposed to how it is done to other countries. At most, you had 9/11 or Pearl Harbor, okay, but nothing really too major. Hence, it is known or referred to as the virgin daughter of Babylon. So come down and sit in the dust, right, representing a sign of grief, mourning, right, distraught, and really being abased. Okay, sit on the ground. There is no throne. So, as to where it was likened onto this glorious or highly exalted country, okay, as Isaiah is saying here, there is no throne, right? There's no more power, no more, and that signifies Babylon losing their power, right? Their authority, their influence, their rulership. O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate, right? So, as to where at one point in time, this place was looked at as the place to be, right? The people thought it was pretty much the streets were paved with gold, right? That's the land of opportunity and yada, 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 which is the equivalent of a woman that's tender, delicate, that everybody wants her. But as Isaiah is proceeding the rest of this chapter with to say that all that is gone, okay, per the vision that he saw, start preparing to mourn, right, and be abased, because that's exactly what this judgment is going to do to you. So verse 2, it says, take the millstones and grind meal, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg. And what he does is he uses the example, right, or the visual of a woman that's captive, right, or a slave woman, to show the low state that Babylon is going to be brought to, right? So because a woman of nobility, which is inferred here due to the mention of there being no throne, does not grind, right, using the millstone, because that's either the job of a laborer, a servant, a maid, or a captive, right? It's like it's work, it's labor. And a quick precept for that is, if we go to the book of Exodus 11 verse 5, in reference to the firstborns, right, there's also a reference here, Exodus 11 and 5, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne. Even so, this is saying from the highest even to the lowest. So from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even to the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill. i.e., the one that's laboring or grinding the mill. And this is what it looks like if you don't know. Grinding mill with millstone. No. There you go. Something like this. Okay, so you had two stones. These were millstones, and you would have a space or a hole in the top one. So the grain would be poured through here, and you would have the handle on the side. And so whoever it is that was grinding, it's the term is quite literal because that's what they would do. They would grind, they would move the stone above, around and around and around, and that would grind between these two stones the seed or the grain and make it flour. So that's why it's in a box around it, because the flour um, coming out from the sides or the seams would be poured or scattered into the box. They would collect that and use it for what they got to do. So that was not the job that one that is of a noble position would do. But as Isaiah is using the example of one that is in a low state, a woman, that's why he is mentioning here, right? Take the millstone and grind meal, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, right? Which was a shameful thing, because a woman in the ancient world that was covered up was honor, right? Women didn't go out uncovered. Okay, even the harlots weren't as uncovered as the women that are considered to be decent and modest in this society. Um, but it was a shame, right, to expose yourself like that. So as it says here, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers, which that term pass over the rivers also signifies captivity, because when slaves, right, even when you go into more recent times, like during the slave trade, they didn't have the women covered up, like they didn't have robes on them and all those things. They had just barely enough to cover them, okay, if at all. And then when they had them shackled up, well, being taken captive, transporting them from one area to another. And so the imagery here of this daughter of Babylon basically being exposed, made bare, as it's going to emphasize more on that in the next couple of verses, and passing over the river, right, being taken captive, having to, travel through. And one image that comes to mind is when Israelites were taken captive to a foreign land. You know that they had to cross bodies of water, but they weren't put on the back of horses or chariots to do that. They had to be on foot. Okay. So Isaiah is using this as a visual to describe the state from loftiness and in nobility to a state of mourning and being brought low, which is what's going to happen to Babylon the Great, which at one point was known as one of those top world countries that you wanted to go to. Verse 3, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. So it's important to keep in mind that in this chapter, there's the analogy that Isaiah uses, which is of a woman being, uncovered. And then there's how that applies, because we know Babylon is not a woman. It's a country, right? Or a nation, and in particular one associated with Esau, Edom. So there are times when you read something concerning Babylon, and it may be concerning America, the land, okay, but sometimes it may be concerning the rulers of Babylon, okay, or if Babylon was personified, the nation of people it would represent would be Esau. Okay, so the context matters also as well when you're reading scriptures that are concerning Babylon or judgment coming to it. So as it says, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. Now, when a woman is wearing a dress, and this is just an example, and there's a mighty wind that blows, and her dress or her skirt goes up, immediately what do? They use their hand to cover. And it's not, they don't go necessarily to cover, their hips, or they go to cover the main part, right? The back, they try to, get it down quick. But if you look at an image, let's say like a still image of a wind that's blowing and a woman's dress going up, both of her hands are mainly in front of her, down below, to try and keep that part down, so that even if the dress blows up, it doesn't blow up, and expose her joint. And she may have something under, but still, it's like an instinctively shameful thing to be exposed like that. All right. So here, that's why it refers to, like the woman be uncovered as shame. But how that applies to this place is, the reason why at one point this place was looked at as this as we're going to read on down, this Lady of Kingdoms, was because of the outward appearance that it gave. But now, through the Spirit of the Lord via his prophets and these whistleblowers, and just the flourishing of truth, and what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, the exposing of these devils, the truth behind this place, how it was made, what's really going on, the conditions of it are being exposed, and everybody is seeing it. Okay, and now it's starting to look shameful when you look around and you look at the condition of the people, the state that the country is in. And that's why you got Trump over here trying to make it great again, as he says. Okay, but a lot of things are being exposed about, the realness of this place, which is showing, or it's a shameful thing for it. And the world is seeing that. Verse continuing, it says, I will take vengeance, I will not meet thee as a man. So the Lord says, I'm gonna take revenge. I'm gonna take vengeance upon you, on Babylon. And I'm not gonna meet thee as a man. Meeting thee as a man, meaning on one front, a man is subject to having pity, or having his wrath calmed, all right, or abated, or redirected. But that won't be the case with the Lord. Okay, and in addition to that, the Lord isn't going to make his appearance, with the carnal means of a man. This is going to be a divine punishment, a divine judgment that the Lord is going to bring to Babylon. As for our Redeemer, right, the Redeemer of Israel, Yahweh of hosts is his name. Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai, okay, is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans. Just dealing with Babylon, right? America. Sit in silence and get thee into darkness, which darkness is also symbolic for a state of confusion. Because when it's dark, you can't see, right? And when you can't see, you tend to, you get confused, right? Where's what's going on? When, say, it's really dark and you start hearing sounds, you're turning around trying to find out, okay, where is it coming from, or what's going on? I don't know what's happening. I can't see what's going on. And that's the state that this country is going to unravel into more and more, because that's going to be the Lord's doing. O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. And the Lady of Kingdoms being, once again, that lofty state, being one of the top nations, to where others would look at this nation like, A, I don't want to mess with them, all right, or B, that's why at some point they were able to make so many alliances, and more so agreements, right, deals, trade deals, whatever forms of agreements. So in past years, as there have been the disannulment of these agreements, they were able to be formed in the first place because of that influence that this place once had, being likened unto the Lady of Kingdoms. Verse 6, I was wroth with my people. So the Lord was angry with the nation of Israel. I have polluted mine inheritance and given them into thine hand. So the Lord is saying, by giving them over unto you, okay, Babylon, associated with Esau, Edom, by making it subject to them as a punishment, they ended up polluting the Lord's inheritance, which is the nation of Israel. And one example is just open up your phone and go on social media, or step outside and see what the world looks like, particularly in communities where Israelites dwell, you'd see how polluted they are by making abominations delicacies and pushing it upon our people. All right, by making our people ungodly, immodest, pushing it through the music, through the TV shows, through the influence. These all have polluted the inheritance of the Lord. As it says here, thou didst show them no mercy, right? So from the very start, when they came there and committed atrocities, not only just against the southern kingdom, but the northern kingdom as well, there was no mercy in that. Even till this day, they don't show mercy. They just save face and then pretend that it's just coming out of the kindness of their heart. So Israel has been in captivity till this day. The captivity just got, renamed, okay, or modernized. Upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke. And keep this in mind. When you were in shackles, right, they were in houses making money off you picking cotton and so on. As your condition got what you may think of as better, imagine how much better theirs got. Okay, so it was growing proportionally. As your case got better, you made more money, they made exponentially more money. It says here, thou didst show no mercy upon the ancient, meaning the elderly. Thou very heavily laid thy yoke, meaning they oppressed. Okay, that's what that yoke is. Like it's a heavy form of oppression, even the elderly, right? Without showing them mercy, because they didn't care. And why should they, right? Verse 7, thou saidst, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart. So in their mind, they weren't going to be touched. Okay. And when I say that, when I refer to today, America or Babylon is a melting pot, right? It's you have a bunch of different nations here in America. But when you think of the image or the face of America, the nation of people that comes to mind are the Edomites. Okay, it's not even the Native Americans anymore. It's not the Moabites, it's not the Ammonites, it's the Edomites. Okay, they're the heart of this place. They drive this place. Even though physical population wise the numbers vary, the spirit that they embody the spirit of Babylon, to put it plainly. So back in verse 7, so that thou didst not lay these things to heart. So when they were very heavily laying that yoke upon the people of the Lord, when they were polluting his inheritance and committing all forms of atrocity against the Lord's people, they did not reflect on their actions. They did not think back to say, damn, we got to chill. Is this even necessary? Neither didst remember the latter end of it. So they didn't think of the consequences that would come for their actions. At least not enough to do anything about it. Verse 8, therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, right? This, because that's what this place is. It's a pleasure-loving kingdom. They live after their pleasures. When somebody's back can grow to be that big, where it's like the, you know what I'm saying? It's like the gates of a city. That's living. They're living in pleasures. They're not trying to discipline themselves. And this place doesn't push for people to discipline themselves. It pushes for them to give in to their pleasures because they make a profit off of your pleasures. Why do you think fast food chains are still open and flourishing? Because of those kinds of foods give pleasure to people. The foods that are not good for you are the most pleasurable ones. Right, the ice cream and the cheeseburgers, the pizza, and the chicken that is not actual chicken, but it just tastes so good you just forget about the rest. This place is given to pleasures, and that's why, if you notice, the theme of bread and circuses is very strong in this place. It's very easy for you to access pleasure in America, either pleasure of women. Right, the pleasure that comes with sleep, the pleasure of eating, the pleasure of being, lazy, slothful, whatever it is. Because this place does not incentivize working hard. And they're pushing that agenda even more as they get closer to that universal basic income, and you will own nothing and be happy. That's the ultimate push for you to incentivize not working hard or really doing anything at all. For centuries, it's been known that you have to work to eat. But here they're telling you no, don't work at all. And if you don't work, then we'll pay you. We'll give you a certain amount every certain cadence. That dwelleth carelessly, which is going to be a byproduct of that. People, both on the geopolitical level and just the internal level, the minds of the people, just careless, without thought. They don't stop and think like, yo, even when danger is in front of them, they've been conditioned to just, it'll just work out. Everything will be all right. That sayest in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me, meaning there's nobody that's on their level, right? They're that top dog because their leader has that spirit of being more stout than his fellows. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. Now, a widow, right, is a woman that's lost her husband. And in the ancient world, that could be very detrimental to you, because the husband, the man, was usually the protector, the provider, right, and the one who managed most, if not everything. And so, if a woman lost her husband, especially at an age where she was no longer youthful as before, that would be very difficult for her, because she could easily end up in debt, all right, or in hardships, not having a man that can provide, because it wasn't as many let's say well-paying jobs like today, that women could do versus what men could do. In the ancient world, why would you hire a female to be a shepherd? Or why would you hire a female to be, a security guard or a carpenter? Or remember, majority of the jobs back then, they were hard. They required tough and hard labor. Okay, so these weren't things that somebody would. Meanwhile, you got men in the marketplace, and you would go and hire a woman. No, so it would be difficult, and that's why oftentimes some of them would fall into prostitution. All right, become a harlot, or even become a slave or a servant, because they couldn't afford to live by themselves, especially if they had kids. So as it says, I shall not sit a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. And these two are they can be pretty detrimental losses to a woman. So in other words, the mindset of Babylon is they're not going to suffer loss. They're not going to go through a moment of great grief or pain. Everything is just going to be all right all the time. And that's why when you have these moments like these Hurricane Katrina moments and these little disasters here and there, people get so messed up because they're not used to pain or difficulty. Verse 9, but these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day. So at once, these things that represent, a great loss that you think you're never going to suffer, they're going to come upon you at once. Becoming a widow is bad enough. Losing your children with that is that's like Job level. The loss of children and widowhood. Now, the children of a country are likened unto its people. So the loss of children and the widowhood is going to be manifested in the form of great destruction, wiping out a lot of people here in Babylon. And the Lord has many forms of judgment that are going to bring about that destruction. They shall come upon thee in their perfection for the multitude of thy sorceries. So if you look at a famine, or you look at pestilence, or you look at some of these disasters, they're designed to destroy. Right? They're the sword. They're designed to kill. They're designed to bring judgment. And so them coming in their perfection, meaning that's exactly what they're going to do. A famine that comes to say a village and everybody survives is not in its perfection. Pestilence that comes to a city and everybody survives is not in its perfection. If it was in its perfection, nobody would survive. See, so these plays coming in their perfection signify them in the completeness of the destruction the Lord is going to bring to this place, as it says, for the multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. And believe it or not, this place from its foundation up until this very day is highly entangled in sorceries, witchcrafts, and enchantments. One of the reasons people can't see that is because they're under the enchantment. And what they do is they do a great deal of witchcraft and they involve the people. They have the people partake and participate in it, but through the enchantment of making a ritual look like a party, right? Or making a participation in paganism look like the hip thing to do or a fun thing to do. They get people to think that, oh, it's just part of the culture, it's just part of the tradition. Meanwhile, they're reenacting highly demonic things, conjuring demonic spirits and putting it upon themselves. But to them, it's a way of life. That's just a part of, life here in Babylon. So they don't see it as sorceries or enchantments. And that in itself is an example of them being enchanted. Verse 10, for thou hast trusted in thy wickedness. Thou hast said, none seeth me. Right. So they have this assurance, this security in their wicked plans and system that they've set up. And in their minds, they're like, nobody can fault them. Nobody can bring them up on charges. Who's going to do anything about it? All right. It says here, thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee. Right. So it has caused them to go astray. I mean, they were ungodly to begin with, but it has taken them even further to where now they're challenging the Most High. Because the Lord gave them access to, technology and wisdom, really for the purpose of fulfilling prophecy. And thou hast said in thine heart that I am and none else beside me, right? Which is what ultimately leads to their that God complex that they have, thinking that no kingdom before them could achieve the things that they have achieved, and nobody's going to be able to stop them from going even further, not even God. And that's why you hear them with their blasphemous statements, with their challenges to the Most High, that the Lord has limitations, ones that they're going to surpass. So now they have the mindset that they're in a position that nobody else can match them. Well, newsflash, buddy. Verse 11, therefore shall evil come upon thee, thou shalt not know from whence it riseth. So the Lord says, so as a result, I'm going to bring destruction, I'm going to bring evil upon you that you're not prepared for. You're not going to know from whence it riseth. You're not going to know the cause. You're not going to be able to figure it out, because usually a good part of providing a solution is finding the problem and the cause of it. But if you don't understand that, then how are you going to come up with a solution? How are you going to, fix your situation? Mischief shall fall upon thee, thou shalt not be able to put it off. So you're not going to be able to escape this judgment the Lord is bringing. No amount of funding, no amount of scientists, no amount of nothing is going to be able to deliver you. And desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. See, in other words, destruction that you weren't prepared for, that you don't have a support or readiness team to deploy in order to mitigate the damages. Not this time around. Verse 12, stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. So Isaiah is saying, yeah, so go ahead. Since you've been using these sorceries since your inception, and when you go to the starting point or the creation of this country, it was built by Masons. Okay, they've been practicing left-handed practices since their inception, and you can even see it in there are certain cities in this country that are designed that follow a certain pattern that go back to witchcraft or left hand sorceries. So they've rooted it There are things in here in this country that are deeply rooted, going back to those sorceries and enchantments. So Isaiah is saying here, so go ahead, use that. If so be, thou shalt be able to profit. So perhaps, peradventure, you may be able to get some good to come out of this. If so be, thou mayest prevail. So perhaps with your enchantments, you may be able to come out on top. You may be able to survive and make it out. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels, right? And wearied meaning tired, right? Because eventually, as Isaiah 19 also goes into, and there's another precept that mentions, is there no more wisdom in Teman? Eventually, those counsels and those plans and all those are not going to work. You call 2,000 meetings and nobody's going to be able to give you solutions as to why your agenda is failing and things are getting worse and worse and worse. And that's going to make them more and more desperate. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators, when you go into the word astrologers, I believe it goes into divide, and that's referring to the heavens so that they can read it, or divine, right? It says to be an astrologer, divination, and let's look in here to the Jacinius Hebrew Chaldee lexicon, to cut up, to divide out. Those who divide the heavens for the purpose of augury, taking a horoscope, i.e. augurs, astrologers. The augury is basically being able to tell certain things based on signs in the heavens, all right, or signs in anything really. So by dividing up, for example, somebody looks up at the stars or the heavens, and then they connect, okay, this star here, it forms this shape. This shape is this horoscope. This horoscope means this, right? So they divide up the heavens into symbols or signs that they can then read and tell you, okay, because of this sign, this means this or that means that. And it all goes back to using, well, on their, at least on this side, left hand practices to gain that knowledge. As it says, the stargazers, look into that word, which goes into here, a seer or vision, right? So prophets, or somebody that's able to see into the future or tell you something that's about to happen. And we have here the last word being prognosticators, which is synonymous with, in definition, with stargazers, right? To know, to learn, to find out, to discern. Okay, so that can go into things of the future, but it can also go into hidden things. All right, so being able to reveal certain things to certain people, you know, what's this person about, you know, and so on and so forth. So these are all you know, forms of sorceries that they use to acquire this insight or this intel. And as it says here, let them stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. But obviously it's almost sarcastic in a way, because that's not going to work. You can try, but it's not going to work. They can tell you the future, but if the future they tell you is that yes, you are going to be destroyed, there's nothing you can do about it. And in fact, now they even have algorithms and machines that work so, you know, so meticulously, using history and prediction models to be able to try and tell you, based on the course that the world is in right now, what's going to happen in the future. And it doesn't matter how you tweak it, if it's accurate enough, it'll tell you, well, according to everything, this place is going to be destroyed. Okay? Because one of the strongest sources of that is the scriptures. And looking at history, this place is following the pattern of great kingdoms and empires that all fell. Verse 14, behold, they shall be as stubble. It's like the concept of Superman, right? And kryptonite. I think he comes from the planet Krypton. Now, You may have some people that are like super experts on this, right? They know the details, they've read all the comics. I'm not one of those, but still going to give the example or the analogy. So let's say everybody from Krypton is weak to kryptonite, right? Whether that's true or not, for the sake of my example, let's go with that. If everybody from Krypton is weak to kryptonite, it doesn't matter if you're Superman's grandfather, if you're his cousin or his brother, or you're the strongest Kryptonian there's ever been. If kryptonite is presented to you, you're going down, right? You're going to get weak. So when you look at the different empires that have come before Babylon, and you liken them all to Kryptonians, they were all subject or weak to kryptonite, being the wickedness, right, and the ungodly lifestyle. So if Babylon follows that same pattern, or i.e. Babylon is also a Kryptonian, it doesn't matter what they try to do. The second kryptonite is presented to them, they're going to be made weak. So it doesn't matter how great this empire is, or how new technology it uses. The fact that it has followed in the same ways as those old empires in their wickedness, it's going to fall. Verse 14. Behold, they shall be as stubble. All right, stubble is like straw. All right, it can be very easily and quickly burned. Let me see if I can maybe get an image. Stubble, straw. That's what it looks like. Okay, and it's already dry. So as it says, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. And where is that fire going to come from? That they is the people, and this place, and the fire is going to be from this third world war that's quickly approaching, and the fire that the Lord brings when he comes back with the chariots and the heavenly host. He's going to use that to burn them as if they are stubble. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame, so they're not going to be able to escape this destruction. There shall not be a coal to warm at, nor fire to sit before. This is Old English for this fire that's coming is not going to be the kind of fire that you can sit before to warm yourself. All right. This isn't going to be that kind of fire that you warm yourself at, or you sit before it like it's a campfire. This is going to be the kind of fire that you can't deliver yourself from, that destroys everything in its path. Verse 15, thus shall they be unto thee with whom thou hast labored. Even thy merchants from thy youth, they shall wander every one to his quarter, none shall save thee. So in verse 15, it's basically saying, this is how all those who you've labored with, you've made deals with, you've had alliances with, this is how they're going to be when this happens. Okay, everybody's going to go to their own habitation, their own quarter, and none of them are going to be able to deliver you from this destruction. And that is what's prophesied as the fate of this place, one among many chapters that speaks about the same judgment coming to Babylon the Great. So with that, Lord willing, this is edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kudash. And until next time, Shalom.